Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Motivational Millennial Podcast. Our guest today is Shawnrey, who is a confidence and presence coach. And we were gifted the opportunity to interview her in person. And speaking of presence, she does have a very calming, beautiful presence. And she shared with us some tips about embodiment and dance and how you can incorporate that into your life. So stay tuned and stick around for the after show, and Blake and I will share our biggest takeaways.
Let's do it. Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our motivational millennial guest today is Shawnrey. Shawnrey is an award-winning performer, speaker, dancer, and choreographer who guides people to live lives that are full of realness, aliveness, and joy. She discovered and created a mindfulness-based movement methodology that changed her life and is now sharing that gift with others, especially emerging women leaders. Shawnrey has performed original work for Justin Timberlake and Madonna and led transformational experiences, performed and taught in 5 continents. Shawnrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So good to have you here in person. We always love it when our guests are here with us.
Yeah.
Such a treat.
Especially as you're such into the embodiment,
Exactly.
It's great to have your body here.
See everyone and actually be in the flesh. It's really great.
That's awesome. Well, we'd love to hear more about what you're up to and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, cool. So what I'm up to, I'm really up to getting people connected to their bodies and connected to their power so that whenever, they walk into a room or go into any situation, they just feel 100% confident and competent so that they can just, get their word out there, get their message out there and be the biggest, brightest people that they can be. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, you had your own kind of transformational journey to get to this place where you have this sense of confidence. Could you talk a little bit about that?
For sure. So people who know me now kind of don't believe it, but I am an introvert, but I was really shy. I was the kind of person who literally would get tunnel vision whenever I spoke to anyone. So, I'm seeing you guys right here, but back in the day, if I spoke to you, then you'd literally start floating away. That's how disconnected and scared I was. Even though I did theater, I would get diarrhea right before I went. My hands would start shaking. I would start sweating. It was just like the most terrifying experience for me to do, just through trial and error, but then also, many other things. One thing that happened is I discovered dance. Dance was incredible because before I did it, I was like this really, high achieving, like focusing really hard, working really hard, but then working myself to the ground. And then what dance did was it allowed me to express all of any pent up anger or frustration or fear or even happiness that I had so that, and give me this safe bubble in which to do it. So that meant that I could just really expand and feel who exactly I was in all aspects of it. And then when I went out into the world, I was able to tap into all of who I am, all of my power. And so that was just really incredible, really healing. And then later on, I talk about that it is a mindfulness-based movement methodology. So later on, I discovered mindfulness, which is, meditation, a focus of attention. And that took it to a whole other level because when you have mindfulness, then you're really being able to be self-inflective and also calm, which then helps you to connect with others. So it turned into something that was just for me and cathartic and moving my body into something that became a tool for leadership, a tool for being, a tool for projecting myself out into the world and also connecting with others.
And how did you decide to take that step from the personal discovery to that next professional level?
Yeah.
And sharing this with others and using it like that?
Right. So that's a really good question because I was just a performer at first. I would perform other people's work. And so I know that, there's some people who they have a dream, they have a vision. I had a dream, I had a vision, but I was terrified to put it out there because that would mean that I was exposing myself, that I was opening myself to judgment, that if my idea was out there, then people would see the real me. And so that's where I was. I was in this kind of hiding place. And at the same time, I felt that there was something missing, and that missing thing was me. It was me being out in the world, me putting my voice, my vision out there. And so years had gone by, and I just kept on kicking myself because I wasn't creating any work. I wasn't making anything original. And then just literally one day I just decided that that was enough. And I took that leap because I had been creating this, this methodology for the longest time, but hadn't been getting it out there. And I found, which is really ironic, but also really beautiful, I found that the same thing that I was creating, the methodology I was creating, was what I needed to apply to myself in order to get out in the world. And so facing my fear, being connected to my body, and being connected to my desires, to what I really wanted, and putting it out there and going for it, and then using all this, all this movement and meditation as a way of creating intention. And that is what actually brought me towards becoming how I am now. And that's why I'm able to help others also go through that journey, because I had to go through it myself.
So what's important to you about providing this type of transformation for other people?
What I really want people to just ravish life. And just be able to live fully. I mean, when we are connected to who we really are and take that leap of faith and take that courage to put it out there, it's a gift to the world, because we light up in how we're being, and, we show up fully. And it's so pure when we're not doing the thing that we want to do, when we're not doing the thing that we are gifted to do, that we're supposed to be doing. We kind of live life kind of half-assed, just sort of halfway, and it's palpable. And if we have so many people that are living half lives out there, then we're going to be creating a world of low energy and just half-lived, half-fulfilled dreams. Yeah, so that's why I want people to live. And I know that it's scary. I know that it's terrifying to put yourself out there, to be innovative, to be creative, because there's society, there are judgment, there are all these things. But the beauty that happens when we actually take that leap is really incredible.
How do you, in your own practice, overcome that fear? Because I know it's, like you said, it exists for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's literally an everyday practice. It's not something that, that just comes overnight. And it's not something that if you stop being conscious of it is going to stay. So how do I get myself out into the world and, putting this gift out there? So I can start off with how I start my day. Is that okay?
Sure.
So when I wake up in the morning, I do one of two things. I'm either going to do a meditation, and I do that anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour. This meditation, I like to start off with paying attention to my senses. So I start off with just paying attention to sound and just really feeling the sound enter my body. And then I go to the sense of smell and the sense of touch and, et cetera, et cetera. So I do that because we are bodies out in the world. And sometimes, when you're just trying to just breathe and just concentrate on your breathing, everything goes all over the place. But, when we are able to use our bodies, that is something that is real, that is tangible, that is right there. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we're going through all the time anyway, right? So I'll do that for about, start off with 20 minutes to an hour. After I touched onto the senses, then I'll just breathe. And then the next thing I'll do, or the thing I'll do instead, is dance. Mm-hmm. So I just literally crank on some music and just get my body moving, get myself breathing, because that creates this amazing connection. You start off your day with this jolt of adrenaline, of dopamine, of, just all these delicious hormones in your body that propel you for the rest of your day. It's how we start our days often influences how we'll continue to be in it. So for me, being able to be in both movement and stillness, the movement is getting the energy up, be able to express. Then the stillness is, the meditation. That's the ability to be introspective, to go deep, to connect with people at a softer level. So
yeah, it's really honoring the mindfulness-based movement, technique that you've created. It's those two sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
So as an introvert myself, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And have had transformative moments over my life. Some have been through meditation retreats and things like that, like really getting in touch with myself. I distinctly remember going to a networking event a couple of days after that and was just so much more peaceful and able to talk to people. And I thought, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have a story or a moment that you recall that shift happening that was like distinct, like, whoa, I have changed.
Yeah. I do. I volunteered in Liberia, West Africa, for a group of youth. I was the director of the program, and these youth had gone through hell and beyond. At the time, it was when I'd first creating this methodology. And they were the first people that I really tried it on. It's like I used it for myself and I was like, oh, okay, this is great. And then I wanted to also, bring this for them because they had been through things beyond our imagination. It was just so incredible because I ended up really coming into my leadership because I had these youth, these people who were looking up to me, who were needing me to step up and to step out. And it was in a way that took me out of my own, like, oh, I'm doing things for myself, but like, oh, no. I have a responsibility to people. And if I don't get my gift out, if I don't share this, then it is not only selfish, but it also is something that will have ripple effects on the world because the healing and connection that these kids eventually got was incredible. And so when I was teaching these classes, it was movement, it was meditation, it was all those things combined. The thing that they kept on saying and that I just bring with me everywhere is they would say, wow, I can feel my body. I can feel myself. And the thing is, they are so pure in that expression. But honestly, that's the same thing that so many people here in the States, they won't say it with that sense of, innocence or naivete, but it's something felt. So what happened during that time is I really saw the power of this, the power of people being able to truly and deeply connect with themselves and their potential, the possibilities of who they can be, literally expanding their bodies and therefore expanding their energy and expanding all the people that they can touch. And then having this meditation that was connected to it so that they could really keep on having that grow and have it not just be, a one-time thing. They could take it with them. It was the most amazing and life-changing experience in my entire life, working with these youth. And then later on, I worked with the adults. And then later on, after I left Liberia, I started doing it here.
That's such a gift, too, for people, especially who have never thought about their bodies as being anything more than a vessel to cart their mind around. And I relate to that a lot. I mean, for most of my life until even the past couple of years, I sort of thought of, you take care of your body, generally speaking, and you make sure it still keeps functioning. But aside from that, you have to kind of whip it into shape and make it do what you need it to do. If it needs to stay awake for an all-nighter, then you're going to, do it. And I think when I sort of started to have the sense of more there is a relationship between body and mind. And in fact, some would argue there is no difference between body and mind, that the body is a manifestation of the mind. That when I started to realize that more, it definitely changed my entire existence because no longer would I just ignore what my body was trying to tell me about everything. I mean, from specific situations just to states of energy, because once I started to tune in, then ironically, I was able to be that much more effective and productive.
Exactly. Yeah. And, that's exactly what I teach my clients. A lot of women, if I'm working with women, entrepreneurs or, women in the office and they're wanting to take themselves to the next level, or they're in mergers and they're like, they're going to be acquiring like more employees, or they're going to be speaking in front of a group. The first thing that I let them know is our bodies is how we connect. It's right now as we are, that's how we're connecting with each other. There's like a controversial study, but there's a study that says that 93% of our communication is nonverbal and not with words. So that means, body language, it means tone, it means like how you use space and all of that. And the thing is, it's not just how we're acting out into the world. It's also how we're acting to ourselves. And so like what you're saying, Blake, when we actually have this curiosity and have this connection with our bodies and with our power in a way that, like you gained that awareness, when you have that, you end up having an upper hand on everything and everyone, because first of all, you're taking care of yourself, but also being really vigilant. And in that self-knowledge, you automatically start understanding how other people behave and how other people are. A lot of times, if we are cut off from our ability to feel or from our power, etc., then that means, we're being cut off from our human beingness. And if you are interacting and working with other human beings, be they on your team, be they a boss, be they, your clients, then you are, you're handicapping yourself, because a lot of people are in the business of somehow or another dealing with and working with or for people. And the second thing is having that knowledge and that facility. What a shame to not use the tool of ourselves. Right?
You're like, this is so obvious.
Right. Yeah, but so many people go around the world. It's like, oh, okay, yes, exactly. I'm going to exercise it, and I'm going to feed it, and then I'm going to binge it, or I'm going to fill it up with all kinds of different things, or from where I'm coming from and all the women that I'm working with, the process that we go through, they say the same thing. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I feel this now. So if they start understanding where their anxiety is, they start understanding their anxiety, and they start feeling, oh, it's manifesting actually in these parts of my body. And then after they actually notice it, then, using movement, they can actually start moving from like these stuck places and having it turn into something that is powerful and that, that moves others instead of, imploding on themselves and cutting them down. And that's just like a little snippet. And if you're going to be out on stage, right, in front of a group or a boardroom, if you're just like, hi, this is my presentation. Do you know how many people are going to fall asleep and how many, and how your idea is just going to fall flat? Our confidence and our body language affects our voices. So if you're collapsed in your body, then it's going to actually collapse how enthusiastic your voice is. And it's going to collapse other people's ability or desire to listen to you. And so you open yourself up, you get connected to your body, you get connected to your energy, so that then when you speak, people could hear that enthusiasm, and then enthusiasm draws other people to want to work with you. And then when you have that, then you have movement and you have collaboration and you have, wonderful things happen.
Yeah.
So
I can really see, there are two things prominently in my mind, but one is that I can really see how this is particularly beneficial to women in leadership, because we are culturally trained to be smaller, even if it's so subconscious. And so that's such a gift that you're bringing to the table of encouraging women to be bigger and aware of the space, and from a lens that is about caring for themselves and about enjoying their life more, and not about the lens of how do I compare to my male counterparts. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're accomplishing the same thing that can be so transformational, but in a way that's going to affect all areas of their life. That's really amazing.
Yeah. It gave me shivers when you were saying that, because that's exactly it. I mean, I work with, everyone, but specifically, I'm really excited about working with women exactly for what you just said there. If women are, if we are in male dominated environments, even if it's not male dominant, but maybe the culture of the work world have a certain way about it, right? If it's more masculine, then women are wanting, are trying to take themselves to the next level. And so then, they're pushing themselves and, in different ways, but then also not feeling nourished and not feeling supported and a little bit feeling, like at odds. It's like, okay, how do I fit into this? Or how do I fit into, this culture, but then also fit into myself? But then, having these conflicting messages of feminine being smaller and softer, etc. And so what I love to do is think of ourselves as really holding and honoring and playing with, both masculine and feminine energy inside of ourselves, and having it be a play, being able to play with that assertive masculine, get things done and linear and focus, etc. But then honoring also the feminine, the intuitive, the connector, right? And then the softer and the self-care, because honestly, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. Honestly, having both of those energies is going to make a better production, is going to make for, fuller, and more well-rounded products or interactions. But I really am dedicated to women because, one, I am a woman, and being a woman, I have personal experiences of what it feels like to not be able to be in my power and have my voice. Mm-hmm. Or it's like, maybe I've done it too much. Some people go to the point where like, I'm scared to be too powerful because then I'll be considered bitchy, mm-hmm. right? There's like, there's this crazy polarity of how do we be women and in power? How do we get our voice out there and be taken seriously? How do we be seen as a leader, but then also connect to our, stay connected to our femininity? How do we have all of those things be in the same place, be in who we are? And that's why I love, what I do, because the mindfulness is like, having all of that, having all that reflection. And movement and dance it's an artistic, exploratory, curious way of discovering that instead of prescribing or, instead it's not a prescription, it is a discovery. I like to give people permission to discover what their leadership is, as opposed to prescribing this is how it should look.
And what's great about having that embodied mindfulness is what you just said. It's an individual experience. And so it's going to look different for different people. But the one thing that is that when you are present and when you are conscious of your body in a sense of power, not self-conscious in a negative sense, there is so much strength in that, because all of these meta-narratives and societal impositions and the questions, right? What is too strong? What is not strong enough? Are you being the perfect image? Then all that can, to a certain extent, go away because you have clarity. But that's so hard because I think our entire lives we're taught, okay, you need to fit in, you need to be liked, you need to obey certain expectations about how you perform your gender identity, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I think you see that the most when you hear testimonials of people who are transgender, who have done some form of gender reassignment surgery or something, and they say existing in the other side. So men who are now living as women in the world, or women who are now living as men in the world. So you totally see just how gendered our society is in ways we don't necessarily think about because we are embedded in it. Mm-hmm. And so I really like what you're doing about bringing the consciousness to who you are in your body and what does leadership look like for you.
Mm-hmm. This is making me think of the second thing I was thinking about, which is how your work relates to compassion and self-compassion, because what I'm hearing and what you're talking about relates to experiences that I've had, and that the more I understand what's happening in my own body, or the more I understand my own pain or my own suffering or anxiety, the more I can understand that of others and the pain of others. So I was wondering how you feel your work relates to cultivating more compassion.
Oh, that is like 100% the deal. Yeah. I have like a client that I'm working with right now who, we just had like this really long, like philosophical conversation. I'm helping her with her speech, but then she's like, it's really getting into like, how does, me knowing myself and being connected to myself help me be a better leader? What does that mean? And you cannot really do or help or teach what you've not experienced yourself. For example, you can tell someone about tennis. You can read a book and tell them about tennis. But when you experience it, and maybe that's not the best metaphor, but when you experience, let's say, tennis, then when you tell someone else, you can actually it's in your body. Mm-hmm. And so like, even when you go and tell the story about it, you're like, and then you do this, and then you do that, then you do that, and like you're telling the whole story with your entire being. Going back to compassion, when you actually have a relationship with yourself, then you actually can be able to share a human experience, with another person. Mm-hmm. Confidence is trust. Mm-hmm. Trust in yourself and others being able to trust in you. So that's number one. Mm. So second, if you are doing things to yourself, to your body, to your mind, unconsciously, you're betraying yourself, your body, your mind. You are creating a relationship of distrust. That means that when you are interacting with others, you've already created a foundation of distrust within yourself. And therefore, any interactions that you create with someone else, it's also going to not have like this level of trust. There's not going to be this confidence. They aren't going to really be able to be confident in you, because if they, if they say that I've had this problem, and then they're seeing in you that, you're not actually connected to any of that. So then the story doesn't get told. And then it goes in the wayside, but then it starts sneaking up, because all problems end up sneaking up. All problems, even if they're not verbally said, they're going to come out somehow. And so compassion, knowing yourself so that what people can see when you've done your work, people can see when you know yourself. That's why you can get, people call certain bosses, assholes or whatever. It's more than likely because there are certain things that the person hasn't looked at and other people can see it. Because when you've looked at yourself, then you can actually see yourself in another person, and people need to have that, because that builds trust. And when you have trust, you can make amazing things.
And I think vulnerability is really also what you're talking about there, which is recognizing the areas where we do feel pain or where we have problems, and then being able to share that to relate to other people. Like you're saying, I have this problem. Oh, you've gone through this too. Not the exact same problem, but you understand what it feels like. And that was something I also had to learn too, because when I started doing public speaking, for example, motivational speaking, I had this idea that, you're just going to come in there and it's all, here's a solution and here's a funny story and here's a da-da-da.
Yes.
And that can be entertaining for sure, and can even help some people. But one thing that Ivy really coached me on was sharing some of the challenges and the frustrations, and that has made the speeches so much better, so much realer, and so much more relatable, because it's like, look, I had severe depression in high school. This is what it felt like. I never felt that I would be loved. I never thought that I would have a focus or a purpose. I didn't know what my future looked like. And kids can really relate to that, because those are the things they're feeling. But if I had to come in with this hard exterior, like, oh no, I've got it all figured out, then that's totally unrelatable.
Yeah.
And so on that line of thinking, like thinking through some of the challenges that you've experienced in this journey, is there one that kind of sticks out that you could share as something that you had to go through to overcome to get to where you are now?
Yeah. It's really interesting. So similar to you, I also went through depression from age 7, actually, till 25. And interestingly enough, for me, the cause of my depression was, later on I learned, was depression is actually suppression of emotions of myself. When I was talking about compassion, if I am, suppressing what I'm actually feeling, then I'm like just killing myself emotionally and just not able to get up and function. Going through that journey, this is when I discovered mindfulness. In order to heal myself from depression, I had to go inwards. I did that work. I started my mindfulness practice at 25, and I did it every single day and got connected to the real emotions that were happening underneath. The reason why that's so important is because I literally wouldn't be here today, in many capacities, like, maybe physically, because I was I was suicidal. Then also the compassion and the relatability, the vulnerability, I wouldn't have been connected to it. I wouldn't be teaching this. It's like one day I realized, I said, oh my God, I haven't been depressed for 2 months. This is when I was 27. And it was a miracle, because that's how I knew my way of life was being in that way. Everyone has their stories. Everyone has their, their obstacles, their things that they go through. And it is those things and being able to be connected to that, to yourself, and to the learnings that those can give, that really create what I feel is true power. Because, as Blake said, it's relatable, because it's deep. It's not this superficial. You're not putting on a show. And because of that, it's sustainable. When you're having to put on a show all the time, you burn out, or you're always a little bit afraid that the veil is going to, be taken away, and then like, oh shit, here I am, And so then you start creating more weird habits or more things that, to try to keep the real you covered up. And so, yeah, that was my big thing. So thank you for, sharing your story. That brought me to to that.
Thank you for sharing yours. That's really powerful. And just, I think it's important to take a moment to honor like your journey in that from 5 years old to 25.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said earlier that there was a moment when you realized there was something missing, and that you said that was me. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel now? What's it like? I mean, being with Shawnrey, like found Shawnrey.
Yeah.
Like, what is that like?
You know what? It actually kind of a little bit makes me tear up right now because it's amazing. It's amazing because I have like, these dreams and desires. It's like, I don't know, it's a difference between like living in a box and then living like outside in the fresh air. Like before, when I wasn't following my dreams, before when I was just so not confident, before when I was so afraid of everyone judging me, there was always that nagging sensation of being confined. And now that I have, it's been scary as shit, coming out and doing my things. Like, oh my gosh, I've fallen flat. I've said things that, that didn't make any sense. I've created a business that kind of just wasn't right. But my life is an adventure that I am proud of. And being able to live that, it's just like being in my own juice, being in my own creativity, being in my own like aliveness and joy. I mean, I said like, I'm dedicated to connecting people to their realness. It's like real, the truth. Their aliveness is like being out there in their joy. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I've done. And even with all the ups and downs and everything like that, it still feels so satisfying because I'm not hiding. I'm not hiding from myself. I'm not hiding from others, but I'm also being really smart about it because I'm being curious rather than reacting with fear. Before it's just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do this thing because people may say something. But now I'm like, oh, where is that coming from? How does that feel? And what, and now what do I want to do with it? And being in that state that's so full of opportunity rather than like constantly stopping yourself. It's awesome, even when it's hard.
I'm so inspired by your words right now because I feel like what you're doing is giving permission to live your life in a way that we aren't often given permission to do. Because you said, my life is an adventure that I am proud of. And that's a really big statement, by the way. Amazing. That must feel really wonderful. And it's also, to me, speaking to that it's about the journey, not the destination, or that the journey is the destination. Mm-hmm. That so often, at least for myself, reaching a goal, like a certain goal, like this career or this stage of life, but it's like, I feel from you that you're like, I have arrived. And you're not qualifying it because I have this particular job or, I have arrived because I am living an adventure and I'm proud. Mm-hmm. That gives me goosebumps. I mean, I've had goosebumps like 8 times since we've been talking, but I mean, it's so exciting. Like I'm feeling that in my body right now. I'm like wanting, really excited about that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm also feeling very moved, but don't have goosebumps because it's about 90 degrees in here.
Oh my God, it is toasty.
just want to acknowledge that as well.
My goosebumps they're not deterred. They're
like, we're coming out!
So what additional advice or what advice would you like to give to millennials who are also, on this path of finding their passion or pursuing their passion, finding that life of adventure?
There's one thing that dance has really taught me. And for me, it's sort of like a metaphor of, let's imagine that your partner in dance, so it's a partner dance, right? And your partner is the universe. And in partner dance, let's say the universe is the lead and you are the follow. The universe is going to be, doing some dips and twists and, then maybe the music is going to go fast, but our job is to dance with life. And you really can do that by listening. You go with the flow of the universe. For example, you can't sometimes the universe is going to like dip you. You're like, actually, I'm a little sore from, I don't want to dip all the way down. If you really know yourself, you can still do a dip, but then you can modify it so that you're not, so that you aren't doing the full dip that the universe is making you do. Right. And then also maybe the universe is giving you some twists and some spins. You can be in that energy at first, but then let go of your hand and do your own thing a little bit. So that's the beauty of a really good follow, pays attention, but also is very self-aware and takes care of themselves. And for me, how I can live and how I've best been able to live, an adventure and create that is when I really stay connected to that. Stay connected to this metaphor of the universe is the lead and it is going to happen, right? And I'm going to be an engaged follow. And I'm not just going to let myself get twirled around, but I'm going to be active in that twirling and be active in that dip and take my hand away and do my own thing and then come back. So that's what I would encourage people to do. Like really think of, be in your life as a dance and a partnership, engaged, aware, and playing.
I think that playing part is really important because it helps us not always take everything so seriously, which isn't to say we don't care about it, but it's just that, we don't know what this step is leading to next. And so if it doesn't always feel like it's going to go the way we want it to right now, maybe there's something even greater or different that we can't even imagine. Ivan and I were just talking about that this morning, actually. And the other piece of that play is I find I get in my deepest avoidant spirals when I'm judging myself so harshly on what I'm not doing perfectly or what I'm not doing more of or whatever. And I love what you're saying about the dance with the universe because it's like, look, the universe or any kind of dance is not a straight line.
Even line dance.
Yeah, even line dance is not a straight line. That's right. And so I think that's great. It's just great to remember. Maybe we think we're doing a salsa, but this is actually a cha-cha, or whatever it is. And it's only in retrospect that we understand like what the dance was like. Oh, so that's why it was a little tricky in the beginning to figure all that out.
I really love this metaphor a lot because one of the things that I think about is co-creating with the universe. That I have the opportunity to co-create every day based on what I do or don't do, and that I'm partners in that sense. But what I love about leading and following is that sometimes I think the trap of the term co-creation is that it creates an illusion or can create an illusion that you have more control over things than you actually do. Because there's a part of us that really wants to feel in control. Uncertainty is the root of all fear.
Oh, yes.
And so I love co-creation because it's like, don't worry, like I as long as I do XYZ, it's going to turn out this way. And that's not necessarily true. And so for me, it's been difficult to kind of reconcile that and release, like, what does co-creation mean? Maybe it's not 50-50, or maybe it looks differently. The outcome will be different. So I love this metaphor because it sort of solves that problem, the dissonance in my brain, because you're, like, the partnership is equal, but it's just different types of roles. And, it's about going with the flow and really releasing, in a way, the need to be in control, because you were saying I'm a follower, and that's a profound to have that perspective.
An engaged follow, like those are really good follows are going to be able to, you're aware, you're aware what's happening. You can also be creative, be able to creative and play in it, and that's what's really important. And I think that's what adds like the the extra little oomph to it. If people are like, oh no, the follow just like gets twirled around, it's like, not if you're a good one.
Yeah. It's just so perfect. Oh my goodness.
That's awesome. So as we are drawing to a close here, is there a motivational quote or book that has changed your life in some way?
I really love the quote by Amy Poehler. She said that if you can dance and be free and not be embarrassed, you can rule the world. And the reason why I just really love that is because, like, dancing, I feel it's like, being able to be alive and engaged. Being free is like this ability to expand your horizons and expand your reach and not be embarrassed. That is, just really honoring exactly who you are. It's just really about honoring who you are. then yeah, you can rule the world because you are, once again, you are engaged, you are alive, you are aware. And that I feel is like one of the most connective things that you can give to yourself and give to others.
I am so grateful that this interview is in person because you have so much amazing presence. All the words that are coming out of your mouth are totally embodied in you. And I love it because I know that's your work and that probably seems really obvious, but it's so beautiful because I wish that all the listeners could be in your presence at some point because it's difficult to put words to, and I'm really grateful for it because you're just so big and I can't wait to give you an additional hug whenever we're done.
Yay.
Yay.
Shawnrey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing where people could find you and your work online?
Yeah, for sure. Check out my website, which is shawnrey.com. My name is SHAWNREY. There's also a Facebook page by Shawnrey. I mean, it's a wonderful thing about having a unique name is that it's unique. So if you go anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, my own website, and put Shawnrey, you'll find me.
I like that you claimed all of the territory before the next generation of Shawnreys appeared.
Right?
Well, thank you so much. It was great talking with you today.
Thank you both. It was so fun.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Workshops. Whether your desire is to connect with other millennials or to provide personal or professional development opportunities to your community, our workshops are customized for your needs. Visit www.motivationalmillennial.com/workshops to learn more. Hello, and welcome to the after show for our interview with Shawnrey. She has just left, and her energy is still present in the room. I mean, I feel that way anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you that it would have been awesome to just have a video interview of this conversation because she's so expressive and animated. And she's really embodying all the things she's talking about.
Absolutely. And it was great because before the interview started, she said, actually, can I take 10 seconds? And then she got up and did some moves and some stretches and some breathing to really bring her energy up. We were kind of doing it too, right? But not as much as she was. And it was just so great. I was like, this is going to be a fun interview when she did that.
No,
so
she was definitely getting a hype before we even started, which is great.
I loved it.
So what was one of your major takeaways from the conversation?
I would say an affirmation of a realization that I had a few months ago. I had the realization and nothing really came of it until recently, but it was when you were talking about how most of us don't really think about the relationship that we have with our body. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's what her work is developing a relationship, understanding what it means when our body does this or X, Y, Z, and it makes me think of having a partnership with my body because our bodies really are our partner in this whole life experience. Our bodies allow us to have emotion, experience emotion. Our bodies allow us to get around and experience the world and travel. Our bodies allow us to eat amazing food and drink amazing drinks. And, our body allows us to experience life and experience everything about life. And our body is also a partner because it's sending us signals and messages subconsciously what's happening in our lives. So if you become really knowledgeable about signals that mean you're stressed in your body. For some people, it's manifests in their belly. For some people, it's the shoulders and neck area. For some people, it's, headache. And if it's seemingly out of nowhere, you have this tummy ache or your head hurts, it gives you an indicator so that perhaps you can take a look at what's going on in your life and really evaluate what's happening. It is an access point for knowledge that we might not otherwise have.
Yeah, that's why I stopped drinking Coca-Cola.
Tell me more.
Well, not totally, but yeah, it was the headache. That's kind of a joke. But I think you're right. When you start noticing that, you can be more conscious of how to design an optimal environment and an optimal experience for your body, which helps support your mind. For example, I've recently become conscious of the fact that my cognitive ability is really on point early in the morning through early afternoon. And it can still be okay in the late afternoon. But if I've just been going and just doing so much work and focus all day long, by the evening, I just need to chill. And I can do certain things like, email and stuff, but anything really creative or really complex, I just need to front load in the morning. And some of that's decision fatigue, which I think everyone experiences, so I don't think that's unique to me. But some people really excel late at night, and I used to be that person. And that's another, I think, thing of what you're saying is like what's true for your body changes over time as you age, as you're in different environments. And I think it's helpful to check in with yourself on a fairly regular basis about how are you feeling in this space or in this situation.
And if you're looking at your body as a partner and looking at it as a relationship, you're taking care of it because you actually care about your body, and you're not taking care of it so that more people will be attracted to you or in some instances so that you can get optimal work. It's just the orientation is around, wow, I have this amazing gift. It's around gratitude, appreciation, and love. And that allows you to think, oh my gosh, I have this amazing gift to experience the world with. And that is first and foremost the reason why it should be treated well and with kindness and with love. It's a totally different orientation, I'm just saying, than what our default is regarding our bodies. And it's something kind of difficult to practice, but Shawnrey really, that is her orientation so much. She just lives and breathes it and embodies it, and it's just part of her. So I really loved having that reminder.
Yeah, I think there's always this phrase, the body is a temple. And I think that's maybe applicable in some respects, but I think that Shawnrey really demonstrates how much the body is alive and moving. So if it is a temple, it's a temple on wheels or roller skates or something, because, it's definitely not static and always quiet.
Temple on wheels.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know how you feel about that. Hey, Shawnrey, you're like a temple on wheels.
That's amazing.
No, it's good.
So what about you? What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I always love a good dance metaphor. When I was giving a graduation speech in high school, I compared our high school class to a dance in which everyone was, circled around, and some people had different times to shine over the 4 years we've been in high school. Some people, liked country music or the, situational equivalent of country music. Some people love rap. Some people love to partner up and dance. Some people were more in certain groups, but I said what I really loved and respected about our high school class was that everybody was welcome at the dance. No matter what kind of dance you did, no matter what kind of music you were into, we created a space where people could express themselves. And I think that's what Shawnrey is doing in her professional work. But I also think when she talks about dancing with the universe, it's sort of the individual experience of that, whereas my high school was talking about the communal experience of the dance. I think she really beautifully talked about how as we dance through our lives, we can see ourselves in a partnership and a relationship with the universe. And an engaged follower, I think, is a great phrase to use because it's really talking to radical acceptance as well. It's talking about there are things that are going to happen in our lives and in our world that are unexpected. Sometimes they may be frustrating or challenging. And looking at those and not yelling at our partner, why did you dip me too low or step on my foot or whatever, but instead saying, whoa, I wasn't quite ready for that, but let's roll with it and see where we go next. I think that's a really healthy and helpful way to look at life.
Well, it's also about trust too, and letting go. There's, as she mentioned with the follower, you're being engaged and how I would describe being a co-creator. But there's also a level of trust, because you may not see how this particular twist or turn or dip or whatever is the right thing or is going to result in, a beautiful dance at the time, but just trusting the leader, or the lead, I guess, in this sense, it takes some effort sometimes, especially when you're in the midst of a dip, and you're like, what's going on? Like, why am I here again? And it's just like she said, I think, when she says that you can say, I don't want to go that low. I'm going to go a little, and I think that's where gratitude comes in. It's like, there's only so much you can do about a circumstance in that moment. Sometimes, sometimes you really can't do anything about it. Like, really, like, sometimes in that moment, it's just like, okay, this happened and I feel powerless. And that's a really scary feeling. But having trust and having faith and having gratitude in that moment, it helps at least let go and release some of the fear and pain that's happening in that moment. It's like still there, but having that faith for me is how I get through my most challenging moments.
I hear that, and I think I see that played out most often when I look back in retrospect at all the crazy things that have happened in life and the things that went very badly and the problems. And so I know a lot of mindfulness is about focusing on the present. And I think that's ultimately perhaps the most helpful thing, for me at least. But I also recognize when we are struggling with the story that we're currently telling ourselves, sometimes looking back at the past can be helpful and saying, oh, wow, I had all these things that I thought at the time weren't going to work out, and some of them that actually were terrible at the time. Like, it's not that it all ended up perfectly in retrospect, but it set me up for where I am now. And that sometimes can be empowering to look back over the struggles that we've gone through in that sense and say, hey, it's going to be okay. I think that's the place it ultimately lands.
The story that I really hold on to in moments where I'm having a crisis of faith, because I am definitely a woman of faith, meaning I believe that life can be better and greater and more fulfilling than what I see as possible right now. I believe it deeply. I have faith in that. That's what I mean. And there are different ways that faith, and there are different structures that faith comes into my life as. And one of them is, the power of attraction. And that is where I think co-creation with the universe comes in. Some of it's sort of metaphysical, but it's really believing that, taking these, for me, it's not just it's about putting the intention out there and the desire out there, which is, for those of you who know about the power of attraction, it's one is putting the intention out there, a very clear intention. But for me, there's a second piece, and it's taking the action. It's taking the steps in the direction, because what's happening is that the universe then will put opportunities and doors in front of you. And if you have a very clear understanding of your intention and what you're wanting out of a situation, you can have increased discernment and say, yes, I want to go this way. No, I don't want to go that way. And so that's where the co-creation comes in for me. And sometimes, though, you take the step forward that you think for sure is going to result in, it's like you hear people who are very successful, and many of them say, you can do everything right and still not succeed. And that is very frustrating and very scary, because it means that in some ways, and in probably more ways than I'm willing to admit at this particular second, like we don't have control over as much as we think that we do. And the story or the moment that I keep coming back to, that one helps me feel faith for the future because I believe that things are going to be okay, but two, regrounds me in, for me, the wisdom that I get from the universe, is when I was applying to grad school. I got into the University of Arkansas. I went to a whole day of interviews to get a graduate assistantship, which is a job on campus. and went to 5 of them. And at the end, I was sitting, I remember in the break room, and I was looking at this portfolio that I had made. It was like, it took me many hours, and it was a physical portfolio to make. And my gut and my intuition was saying, Ivy, you need to take this portfolio and you need to go give it to this one particular woman who had the job that I really wanted the most. And my brain said, no, because this took a really long time. Okay. And like, you're going to do it over again and whatever. And my gut said, no, yes, you need to go. So I did. I listened to my gut, despite it being totally illogical, but I listened to my gut. I gave it to the woman. Then I didn't get the job. Like, I didn't get any job. I didn't get any assistantship. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for school? I was feeling rejected and down in the dumps because I had done everything right. You know, and I had excelled and I did really well. And I knew that. So I couldn't understand what was happening. And a few weeks later, I got a call from a woman who, at the time of the interviews, she had a graduate assistant. And since then, he'd gotten another job and this position opened up. And she was looking out. And because I had given this portfolio to her colleague, that colleague had this portfolio and said, I had this really great interviewee. She has this great portfolio. You should call her. And it was me, obviously. And, you know, she called me. We'd had a conversation and she hired me that day. And that is the job that got me to the job after I graduated with my master's, where I met you, Blake, that helped me get out here, right? At the time, I was so upset, you know, and felt so powerless and so scared. And I think it's really important for us to remember that, like what you're saying in the retrospect, and hold on to those stories that we can look back on and say, okay, you know what? It turned out to actually be the best thing ever that happened. And remember that, even when it's hard to remember that. You know, it's like, in summary, the whole dance metaphor makes a lot of sense to me. It feels like a totally perfect representation of what had just happened in that instance.
Yeah. And if you wanted to trace it, it's like because you listened to your instinct or the universe or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
In that moment, you're here today, like creating this podcast.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Which isn't to say there couldn't have been another path that led you to this point. And so I think that's important too, is like, but the disappointment actually was necessary to set you up on this path in the first place. So hopefully to, you know, you are amazing listeners, whatever you're going through right now, if you feel like it's frustrating or not turning out the way you want it to, I really believe that there is that possibility that it is setting you up for something different and hopefully something even greater than what it seems. And at the very least, you know, no matter what comes of it, it's making you stronger because you're getting through it. Not to always end on a nice little motivational note there. But.
Yeah, we're going to be here on that journey with you. And so we hope that you come back next week to listen to another episode of the Motivational Millennial Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!